Welcome to another episode of UEN's PDTV. I'm your host, Katie Blunt. In our last episode, we traveled to Harriman to visit Providence Hall High School, where library media specialist Mariah Gerlach helped Catherine Jensen's 10th grade honors English class use Scribble to conduct research. Well, we're back at Providence Hall again because I'm so excited to find out how the students are going to communicate all they have learned from their research. Well, Catherine, thank you for joining us on PDTV.
You're welcome.
I am really excited to hear about the projects that the students are doing with their research. So tell us about it.
So my students have had to do a unit on rhetoric, and the idea behind that was that for them to be able to practice writing and speaking skills. And so they have studied speeches, written speeches, and then presented speeches. So they are expected to come up with a topic of their own choosing, and I tell them that the topic can be anything that they wish. And then we kind of dive into this idea of what it means to deliver a message verbally and then also deliver a message non-verbally with those sorts of cues.
Was there a little inspiration from TED Talks coming into this project?
Oh, definitely. I think TED Talks are this amazing forum that we have for students to watch and to learn from, and for all of us to learn from. And so it's kind of a TED style kind of conference at the end that we do, which is pretty cool.
EdTech Competency 3D focuses on developing 21st century learners, specifically facilitating learning through communication. In this episode, Catherine's students will show us how they communicate complex ideas clearly through TED-style presentations accompanied by digital objects. So you're pulling in all these different skills
Definitely.
that all tie into the curriculum that you're teaching, it sounds
Yes.
like. So
Yes.
you've got research, you've got writing, you've got speech giving.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you evaluate how they've done on their presentations?
It's a good question. So there's a lot of things that come into it. I have two different rubrics that we use. One is a delivery rubric for their actual speech recitation at our speech conference. And that rubric has all sorts of different criteria on it. How they're the tone of their voice, so verbally how they're coming across, but also things like eye contact and are they reading from notes? Are they mostly memorized? How is their posture? How is their hand movement? Are they fidgeting? That sort of thing. And so there's a delivery rubric that really gets across those ideas of the emotion and the verbal skills that they're using, but also those nonverbal cues that we know are so important to delivering a message and reaching your audience. And then there's a written rubric as well, where we're looking at things specifically on this topic of rhetoric. So how's their ethos, their pathos, their logos? How is the structure of their speech? Did they use their opening well? Did they close strongly? Did they really get a memorable tagline or message across? And so I try to have a rubric, or two rubrics really, that encapsulate everything that we're doing in the curriculum: speaking, listening, writing, and delivery.
So that means that we're getting tired and falling asleep later at night than other age groups. We as teenagers need around 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night, but we tend to sleep best between 11 p.m. and 11 a.m.
I love a couple of things about what you said. One, that it's clearly coming from your curriculum goals.
Yeah.
That this project covers a lot of what these students should be learning for your core curriculum.
It does.
I also noticed that it seems to me it doesn't really matter how information is presented in the end. In this case, they're doing a speech, right?
Right.
But the heart of it still comes to processing all of that research, synthesizing it, and being able to write it out in a way that makes sense.
Most definitely. They have to do their own research, figure out how they are going to encapsulate a message, a memorable message, in about a 5-minute time limit. And for some of them, that's going to be about 500 to 800 words. For others, it's going to be 1,000 or more words, depending on how quickly they speak. But the idea for all of them is to do research, to look up sources, statistics, and figure out a memorable way to deliver their message to their audience.
Now I noticed that the students also incorporated digital objects into their presentation.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So we work a lot with the library because the librarians here are fantastic, and they help us to introduce them to Scribble for their research, and also for a visual component, which goes along with that nonverbal communication piece. They also make an infographic or a poster or a flyer of some sort, so they can visually represent what they're trying to communicate to their audience as well. So we've incorporated our digital world, which is so prevalent and necessary to our learning today, and then also been able to use that to go along with the speeches that the students give.
I really love that, how it's supporting this in-person experience with these digital objects to reinforce their message.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why is it important to give students opportunities like this to present their findings?
I think that it's important for them to understand that they have a voice in everything in the world and society as well. I think it's really important for them to understand that some things, I mean, I know that for the most part they're doing this because it's their assignment and they want to get a good grade in English class, but also there are opportunities moving forward in life where they're going to need these speaking skills. They're going to need to be able to voice their opinions, or to be able to really choose for themselves what they're going to believe out of what they're hearing. So there are so many things in our world that are constantly coming at them, right? They have access to cell phones that has the entire internet on it. They can get pretty much access to any information, correct or incorrect, that they want. And so the idea is to, A, what do I believe? What do I stand for? How can I be persuasive in making others aware of those thoughts and beliefs? And then just really look at that from a whole perspective. Rhetoric is everywhere in our society, and so students should, A, be able to recognize it, B, be able to understand it and choose for themselves what direction they're going to go in, and then finally be able to use it themselves in job interviews, college applications, in any situation where they're asked to speak with an individual or a group of people. So I think these things are really important in today's lens.
On May 2nd, 2018, my older brother Nicholas committed suicide. I know the pain and the feeling my brother was going through, and I know the desperation he felt. The struggle of suicide ideology is strong, and it holds on for dear life.
It's a really powerful project with that perspective, so thank you. And I loved seeing how personal some of the topics already were that they were presenting today.
Yeah, it's really outstanding. Like, this is my favorite unit by far in the year because it really gives them an opportunity to shine and be who they are and talk about the things that matter to them. And some of them will stick very close to what is comfortable, school, education, teenage life, but then others will branch out to things that have affected their lives, have really mattered: suicide and gun rights or gun control, or gender equality or inequality as they see it. And so it's a really interesting thing to let them pick their topic. Their writing is always going to be better when they choose their own topic, and then to let them just kind of run with it and see where they can take it. And I tell them, you're not necessarily going to persuade everyone in your audience to believe what you believe, but you definitely can make them think. And that's, if I've made someone think, that I've done my job, I think. So that's pretty good.
Thank you so much for sharing your project with us.
Of course. Happy to do it.
Now that you have seen EdTech Competency 3D in action, consider how you can implement it in your teaching as well. First of all, if you haven't watched our previous episode of PDTV, watch it. Research is the first step to helping students communicate complex ideas effectively. Students need support in diving through information, finding reliable sources, and understanding the information that they glean from their research. Writing skills are also an important part of this process. Whether a student is preparing an essay, a speech, writing a script, or designing an infographic, they will need support in synthesizing their research so that they can effectively communicate what they have learned. Speeches and presentations are just one way for students to communicate what they have learned. Consider a variety of digital objects that could be used to help students display their knowledge. Objects like essays, ebooks, films, podcasts, blogs, graphics, works of art, or AR and VR objects. Consider allowing students to choose which type of object they feel will best communicate their learning. For even more ideas, strategies, resources, and tools to help you implement this competency into your classroom, be sure to visit uen.org/PDTV and access the teacher toolkit that accompanies this episode. Thanks for watching UEN's PDTV. To access more professional development resources from UEN and to request a training, visit uen.org/development. We'll see you next time.